So, my dear ones, today we get to look at a wonderful, wonderful topic, enchantment. Enchantment. It's a beautiful word, I believe, for most of us. And it can cause us great joy. But in another sense, it can be something that troubles us. We can allow ourselves to become enchanted on the negative side of life. We can allow ourselves to be enchanted by all kinds of things, and we are. Caroline Myss says that looking into the anatomy of spirituality today and looking about all of the things that we are in the grip of, it would be better to think in terms of alchemy. She thinks that the 17th century language is much better for this, and to understand enchantments and spells, because she says we are all under enchantments and spells. And we get a greater sense, if we use those words, of what that's like. We're all mesmerized. And so we can be under the enchantment or the spell of money, hoarding it or lack thereof. We can be under the spell of disease and be enchanted by that and mesmerized by it. And we can be enchanted by a hunger for power. We can be under the spell of all kinds of things in our lives that we're not even aware of. And our call this week is to look at what spells and what enchantments we're all under, and to really start to practice a different kind of alchemy, a spiritual alchemy that releases us from those spells and those enchantments and wakes us up from being mesmerized by so much that comes at us from outside of ourselves, and certainly from outside of the truth of our being. And so we are called then to look at this week how deeply we are engaged in this sort of spiritual amnesia and mesmerization that we've allowed to move us into inertia, forgetfulness, and all kinds of things that don't serve us well. And so what have we got to do? How do we handle this? How do we meet this challenge? Well, first and foremostly, we need to be able to say to ourselves, well, I'm ready to wake up. I'm ready to be free of this. I'm ready to do what it takes in order for me to break those spells and break those enchantments that do not support my life, or any life for that matter. I'm ready to do that. I'm ready to be enchanted by things that are whole and wholesome, and things that are of, divinity, the divine nature of us all, the truth of us all. And I'll do what it takes. And so what does that look like then? How do we go about all of that? And as I see it, the number one way of doing that is to allow ourselves to stop being so self-reliant on everything outside of ourselves, and to start entering into a much deeper awareness that if I really want to break free of anything that's binding me in any way, I need to go to source. Return to the root if peace is to be gained, says an old Chinese proverb. Return to the root if peace is to be gained. So you and I have to return to source. But what does that mean? How do I return to source? And where is this source I'm supposed to return to? Well, of course, it's right where you are. And this is the hardest thing of all for us to get. It's our greatest challenge. Because we look at our lives and we see everything that's not so hotsy-totsy, and everything that's not going right, and everything that's up the creek without a paddle, and all the things we haven't got, and all our lacks, and all our disappointments, and where we should be by now, and we're not there, and so on and so forth. So how could God be in the midst of all of this? And yet, that's exactly where God is, in the midst of it all. Right where you are, always has been, always will be, but totally ignored for the most part. Totally ignored for the most part. Because we go outside of ourselves looking for the answers and looking for the solutions. It's not going to work. So the biggest thing for you and for me, and the biggest challenge, is to enter into the alchemy of solitude. Allowing ourselves the experience of solitude. Allowing ourselves time to be alone with ourself in the presence of spirit. This is awesomely profound, and this is the answer to every dilemma that might cross our paths. See, the thing about spells and enchantments are, we believe them, we believe it is so, and we believe there's nothing we can do about them. And it's the person or the thing that casts a spell upon us that must take it away. That's what we believe. So we feel hopeless and helpless a lot of the time because of that. But if we enter into the divine alchemy the way things are, and we focus ourselves on things that we wish to experience and ways we wish to follow, and situations and circumstances and conditions we wish to realize, then that breaks the spell, the old spell that is stopping us and blocking us and keeping us back. The way we do that is through solitude and to be with ourselves in the presence of spirit. Some of us find it very hard to be with ourselves at all, to be alone in our own company. Some of us find that very challenging, and others will say, oh my gosh, I love my own company. Well, it's great for those who do. But for those who are somehow agitated when they're on their own too long, this is the answer. And for those who love to be in their own company, remember, there's someone else in your company too. And you'd even be even more jazzed and delighted with yourself to have a few minutes to yourself if you included the source, spirit, and you had that kind of a relationship with source. That's the answer, and it's the only answer, and it always ever will be the only answer. So here's the thing. Why do things, when we make all of our endeavors, seem to go wrong? Well, it's because I want the experience of heaven. I truly do. I would spend my time invoking heaven to be, the experience of my life and living. And I'm doing that while all the time I am so focused on hell. I'm focused on hell all the time I'm wanting heaven. Aren't we ridiculous? But that's the way it is. Now, what did Moira Foxe mean when he says, take your mind off your problem and put your mind on your good or God? He means, get out of hell in your mind and start putting your mind on heaven. It's the only way. Get out of hell. And think about that. And I'm not giving us all that to remember. It's very simple. How can I be in heaven when I'm all the time focused on hell? Hey, that's a country song. Somebody should write it, they'd make money. And I want 10% for the church. Seriously, it boils down to that. That's how you change everything in your life. You take your mind, your thoughts, your emotions away from it. You give it no thought, no feeling whatsoever, and you come over here and you think about yourself the way you want yourself to be, and you feel about yourself the way you want to feel. And you do it now, even though there's one wheel on your wagon, and you don't know how you'll continue to roll along. That's how you do it. You have heard this tens of dozens of times, because I've said it tens of dozens of times. And there is no other way. Stop being mesmerized and under the spell and enchantments of the hellishness of discomfort, dis-ease, lack, limitation, and all the rest of it. And here's the thing, my dear ones, nobody can do this for you except you, darn it. Can't pay for this one. There was a time when you could conscript somebody and pay them to go into the war for you, Can't do that anymore. And you cannot do through another person what you need to do for yourself. Which brings us into the very important gift of being able to be spiritually discerning. That's another way we break free of enchantments. The way we become spiritually discerning is to seek counsel always within Spirit. Seek counsel always within Spirit, from the Holy Spirit, from wisdom itself, that lives and moves and has its being in you. Now, you can seek counsel from people outside of your own life. But what if they don't have spiritual discernment? What if they haven't reached that stage of spiritual discernment? Whether it's your loved ones, your friends, or strangers, or professionals, and so on. Why would you go seeking some very important information that will affect your life from people who do not have spiritual discernment? Anybody can give you an opinion. Anyone. Which is why it's so important to have spiritual direction in your life. Why do you think in the monasteries and in the ashrams and in spiritual formation places that they insist on you going for spiritual counsel every single week? Every single week you show up to your spiritual director and you engage in spiritual counseling. There must be a reason for that. And there is. And this has happened since time begun. We have had anamkaras, spiritual friends, so to speak. Now, these are people who are going to tell you not what you want to hear. They will tell you what you need to hear, what you ought to be ready and available to hear. And it's not pretty sometimes. It's very unpleasant, actually. You feel slapped up the side of the head sometimes when you leave. You really do. And they don't pull their punches, especially the spiritual leaders, any of the ones that I've come across in the monastic life, or in the ashram for that matter. And they tell it like it is, whether you want to hear it or not. And they're not worried about how you're going to feel about it. They don't pussyfoot around it. Because why? They honor you. They honor you to be at the stage in your life where you've brought yourself to the availability of being under spiritual direction. They honor that. So they don't play down to you. It's a very important thing and something we all need to ponder if we don't already have a spiritual director in our lives. But behind that, their only focus is total devotion and service to you, because they want you to flourish and to thrive and to spiritually unfold and to prosper like a spiritual being always does. And I'm not talking about stuff and things when I'm talking about prosperity. I'm talking about well-being. I'm talking about peace of mind. I'm talking about all of that kind of yummy stuff. What is the benefit from doing this and entering into alone time and solitude with the source of our being? What is the benefit of that? I'll tell you. The benefit of that is a mind that becomes quieter, a mind that becomes less frenetic, less concerned, less worried. A mind that eventually, when you're doing it for long enough, can handle anything that crops up. A mind that is clear. That's one of the benefits. And then what about the heart, the emotional body? The benefit of that is your emotions calm down. Your emotions are not always knocking you all over the place, pushing you and shoving you and shaking you and pulling your hair. They come to that lovely sense of poise. Poise, poise. They settle down. So when you have this quietened mind and this poised emotional body, guess what? Your body relaxes. Your body relaxes. It doesn't feel so stressed. It doesn't feel so strained. It doesn't feel so clenched. It relaxes. And so with the mind open and the emotions settled and the body relaxed, the soul is free to take you on all kinds of beautiful adventures, amazing adventures that are of wonder and deep enchantment of the best possible kind. That's what happens. But none of this will happen without you coming to terms with your need, your deep need for solitude. Alone time with Spirit. Alone time with Spirit, in Spirit's presence, in Spirit's company. Alone time with Spirit, in Spirit's presence, in Spirit's company, so that you can feel the bigness in yourself, the expansiveness in yourself, the width, the girth of yourself, your great self. So that when you come back into company again, you come back as not only a light, but an energized light. And here's another thing about the light of Spirit that fills everything and fills us. When we are, I getting the God bumps already, but when you allow yourself to honor and acknowledge the light of Spirit that is within you, around you, and about you, above you, below you, there's a heat to it. There's a heat to it. There's a warmth to it. And that's the power of it that produces the passion in you to be jazzed enough to get up and get going and being all that you can be. Now, don't take my word for it at all. My word means nothing. It's nothing. Test this out for yourself. Find this out for yourself. But you won't test it out and find it out if you don't do it. You don't do it. I mean, how many of us in this room, it's a rhetorical question, how many of us in this room, I won't embarrass anybody, and I won't allow others to show off, how many of us in this room can honestly say, my heart has been stolen by my Creator? My Creator has stolen my heart away. How many of us can say that and feel jazzed by it? Because that's where solitude takes us. Solitude takes us to that place where our hearts are totally taken, stolen, totally enchanted by the divine that is within us. Does that mean you'll never lose it? You'll never get short? You'll never snap? You'll never do any of that? No, it doesn't mean that at all. God help us all. We'll keep our clay feet for as long as we're wearing a body because it keeps us humble. And oh Lord, it's hard to be humble if you're perfect in every way. So clay feet are okay. They're good. They're good. They're all right. You know, all those chia pet things and so on. They come up out of clay pots. Beautiful. Lovely green, lovely verdant life. Come out of the clay. Look at what you put in the clay pots, the beautiful flowers and things and so on. Clay is good. It's earth. It's part of the humanity that we are. But what it means is that if you give yourself this chance to totally be surrendered to the love of your life, because that's the love of your life, and every time you go out searching for love, you're not searching for it in a person, place, and thing. Your soul is singing out and crying out for you to return back to the love that is within you, because that's the love you're seeking and that's the love you're looking for. And all the rest is beautiful distraction along the way. That's all. But we stand alone in the way we enter into the relationship with our source. No person and no place and no thing can bring us to that. It is our own awakening and remembering and our own ceasing to be fascinated, enchanted, and under the spell of outer things. Outer things. And nobody has the power to cast a spell on me or an enchantment if I don't allow it. I have to allow it. I have to believe. I can remember once a mother of my friends saying, oh, when I was a youngster, it was her grandmother actually, I went to Gypsy Rose Lee, and she told me every single thing that was going to happen in my life, and it all came true. Why? Because she believed her. She was under the spell. She was enchanted by what she heard. And that enchantment and spell she adhered to for most of the days of her life thereafter. Now that's sad. You understand that destiny is not something that is solid and set. Destiny is something that you continue to recreate every day of your life. Kismet, destiny, is something you're interfering with all the time with the way you're thinking and feeling and deciding and doing and all of that. You create your own destiny, and so do I. So even though people say it's marked out for you, it's laid out for you, it's the way it's supposed to be, it's baloney. That's rubbish. The only thing that's marked out for me and decided about my life and living is what I decide is marked out for me and what is ahead of me in my life and living. I will decide that, thank you very much, and nobody else. I may do a bad job of it, nevertheless, it's my decision. You're not the boss of me to everything and anything, you can say that. You're not the boss of me to disease, to lack of any kind, to a limitation of any kind, to what seems to be permanent and set. You're not the boss of me. Have to have that same kind of faith that I would say Martha had in her belief in Jesus. Even though Lazarus was dead 4 days when Jesus eventually arrived, so you can imagine how ticked off they were feeling because he knew Lazarus was on the brink, but somehow he got delayed on the way to the forum. But even so, when Martha expressed how disappointed and saddened she was, she says, but even now you can do something. Even now you can do something. That even now is very important in that story. And of course she was right. She was right. Even though she was annoyed and fed up, and I won't use the words, with Jesus and so on and so forth, she still had faith and belief in him. And it worked out well in the end. So the call this week is, my dear ones, look to your life and pay very close attention to the spells and the enchantments you've allowed yourself to fall under, and decide enough already. Get out your magic wand and do the incantation and get rid of it. And what's your magic wand? Your decision to be in solitude with your source. And what is the incantation? Your beautiful prayer of receptivity and acceptance of your good. That's what it is. Because remember that you are here and I am here and we're all here for one thing, and we sing it to remind each other of our magnificence, to remind each other of how deeply and richly we are truly loved. I'm here to remind you of that, and you're here to remind me of that. Now think about that the next time you want to have a go at someone. Is you having a go at them going to remind them of their magnificence and how dearly and truly they are loved? I don't think so. And when you fall off that wagon, get quickly back on again and say, oh, I blew that one, had an opportunity there, missed it. Okay, upward, forward, onward, won't do it the next time, without berating yourself. But have that sense, I will do and succeed eventually in what I truly want for myself and who I want to be. Are you willing to do this now? I mean, really, come on now. You're really willing to look at those spells and enchantments this week? Yes. And have a go at them? Yes. I think so. And remember, the best way to do that is first and foremostly before you sit down or walk to do it or whatever way you're going to do it, is to open yourself up to the power and presence of that which goes before you and will enable you to do it by doing it through you. And you're going to have fun with this. It's got to be fun. Spirituality is fun. It's fun. It's joy. How could it be anything else when we remember what we have going for us and what we have working through us? So I'm knowing for each and every one in this room right now, beloved presence in each and every one of us, this is what we are knowing. I am ready. I'm ready to be done with it, so very done with all of the nonsense. I am ready now and open and receptive to divine guidance and divine power to move ahead and to release from my life everything that's stopping me and everything that's blocking me. And I am knowing that I don't have to do this on my own. I am empowered, I am guided, I am enlightened to see the way for me to do exactly that. Release myself from all the spells and enchantments of the non-truth that I've been allowing to influence my life now. Because you, beloved presence, is all I wish to choose to focus on, and your goodness and your kindness and your givenness and your ability to make everything new, knowing there's no impossibility once I'm working in alignment with you. Thanks and praise and love, knowing I am in this process already begun, and the outcome is glorious. And so it is. Amen and hallelujah.